unless if we...
I don't want to
Okay. Oh, that's okay then.
be in danger of messing up.
I'll have to mute the projector at one point, so I'll just do it like that, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mimic the gesture of a stranger on the train, holding it just a second longer than my attention tries to tell me is interesting. And then finally asking, okay, but what else lives here? What else is here that I have yet to see, to hear, to feel? And I think love is just standing side by side, gesturing towards the same thing and asking, will you look with me? Do you see it too? If not, will you tell me what you see? Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't looked at it that way before. And there's something about the way quotes, texts linger in the body, morphing into shapes I have yet to know but am clamoring to remember. That my body will always first choose pleasure if I allow her to. And perhaps my body too is asking me to stand still long enough to see what she points to and respond and say, oh yes, that too is interesting, yes. I too remember the sensation of hunger, yes. I too remember the sensation of desire. On days I do not know how to hold love, I remember that someone, somewhere, loves me. And I move towards that memory, that moment, that holding despite the distance, the time, trusting that if love is there, love is there. Energy is not created or destroyed, transformed. On days I do not know what desire looks like, I ask myself what I want for breakfast and trust that this hunger is both practical and magical. And how when you want something long enough, it becomes a fact. Maybe life is just a meditation on practicing what I want. Not that I get it, not that I need it, but just the wanting being a form of living, and listening to the wants of those around me being an act of love, an act of stillness, an act of listening for your breath just long enough to find myself inside the pauses to whisper, I know, me too. Roland Barthes in Pleasure of the Text states that the pleasure of the text is the moment when my body pursues its own ideas, for my body does not have the same ideas I do. I came into performance through language, through poetry. I came into performance in an attempt to love my body, in an attempt to love, in an attempt to love, in an attempt to love my body, in an attempt to love my body, and through loving my body, fall more in love with the world around me, fall more in love with the people around me, fall more in love. I loved you once. Once I loved you. And one day that love grew into something other than love, and I'm still not sure what I would call it. I've thought about you most days since my move, but not in the way you would think. But in the way that I remember at Kay's 11th birthday, her dog escaped from the backyard and got hit by a car, and we all saw it happen from behind the bushes as we hid playing a game. I don't remember the rest of Kay's birthday that year, but I remember our two bodies huddled behind the bush in the front lawn, and I was sad when her body left mine to go fetch her howling grief in the streets. I did not know the dog was dead or was soon to die. I just remember our bodies huddled tight and how our moms came to pick us up early, and no one really knew what to say, and no one really knew what to say, but they never know what to say, and I know that now, but I didn't know it then, but I know that now. Now that I am too grown, and I never know what to say, and I thought words to be some magical healing balm, and I think sometimes in certain mouths with certain moments they still are, but I did not yet trust the motion of my own mouth, so instead I hugged you. I hugged you and I wished you a happy birthday. I wish I could remember the last time I touched you. Once I was in love and then I wasn't. Then I was in love again, but not with the same person or at the same time, but I was in love all the same. Once I realized I could love myself. Once I realized I could love myself. Once I realized I could love myself into love through language. I language you. I language you. I have fallen into language with you. I have fallen out of language with you. I languaging love. I languaging love. I languaging languish. I language love. Languaging longing love. I language you into loving. I language you into loving. I language you into longing love. Loving love. Loving longing love. Longing languaging longing languishing longing love. I have forgotten how to love. Poetry is a vehicle that breaks apart language in order to rebuild worlds with words, as lines and structures and metaphors and bodies. Words as memories, returning points. Words as body, words as multiplying the body, writing as erosion, as shelter. The elasticity of language showing the very failed attempts that the English language provides us. Since 2017, I have been asking myself, where does the poem long to live? The body, the page, the object, the voice. But maybe this living implies a permanency. Perhaps the question I have been actually asking is, where does the poem move? Does the poem move you? Will you allow the poem to move you? Will you allow the poem to linger with you longer than you anticipated? Will you allow the opening of what a poem might be to be more expansive than even language allows, to move towards a gesture of becoming? The language of my body knows yes before the text does. In all my attempts at poetry, I am intrigued at the limits of the English language and poetry's elasticity of language to poke holes at these very limits. I language you. I language you. I language love. I love language. From this place of loving my body, of loving text, of finding poetry to be a somatic experience, of wanting to bring the somatics deeper into my studio practice, into my body, into the audience, and into my classrooms, I enrolled in March of 2021 in the Tamalpa Institute, founded by Anna Halprin and Daria Halprin, to become a registered somatic educator and therapist. My entire first year at SAIC was spent balancing these two programs at once. This October, I finally finished the classroom portion of my certification and am now preparing for my practicum. What does it look like to hold audience care in performance spaces, in the classrooms? How might embodiment practices affect the artist's studio practice? It is from this space of embodiment that I trust the text to come alive. Poetry and its limits allow my body a somatic space to become. And layering the poetry and layering the language inside of language, through language, around language, my body is activated alive. Alive to memory, alive in repetition, which is also a returning to memory. The body untethering language to resituate, oriented to objects, to new perspectives and identities. I write and perform from a place of memory as a way to understand liminality, as a way to try and stay within the liminal as a living ground, a place between that which we cannot reach yet are always reaching for and towards. I am a result a reaction, an energetic pulse from what came before me and what has happened to me. And my actions forward are both reaching towards a knowing and a remembering at once. I am no siloed entity, but moments of continual accumulation and alchemy. Inspired by Miguel A. Lopez's writings of A Nostalgia for the Future, I am living within nostalgia. I view art, particularly the process of making art, as an embodied practice of uncovering ancestral and future generations of knowledge. My body knows the way forward, my body remembers the way back. In my own practice, I am asking questions around memory, and why am I so concerned with my own memories? Is memory a thing I can touch? Is memory a thing that lives inside of me? Perhaps it just lives between the moments and the action of remembering, two directions forever moving apart from the other. Remembering, not the memory itself, but the putting on of a memory, a slightly different garment each time it is reached for. A new stain, a hem ripped, a button missing. What am I reaching for in my memory? I view art making, particularly poetry, as an active exploration of how we change our world, as a form of spell casting to bring about change. I believe imagination is a crucial part of organizing, rebuilding, just as it is in the art making. And is that not what artists do at their core, create a place of unknowing and disremembering to open spaces where a repair and a repeat can begin to exist in new ways? Bread, a doorway of desire. Here, this is my body broken for you. Here, take and eat. I do hope there's bread in heaven. I do. Heaven in the here, heaven in the devouring, heaven in my pleasure, heaven in my now. During the show in summer of 2022, I realized, oh yeah, all these gestures have just been portals, rituals, openings. Oh yes, these poems are spells, aren't they? Oh yes, they hold magic for others too. And I ask myself, how big might this hunger get if I let her have all that she wants? How big will this desire grow? How big? Her teeth, her jaw, her lips. What if she just never stops growing? Then there is my mouth of pleasure, a doorway of desire, praying, please, if it can, let this cup pass from me. And I'm cutting off my ear to stop the desires. And hunger only grabs the dismembered ear and heals it back to my scalp. And with this new ear, I hear my own voice scream, please, if it can, let this cup pass from me. And so now I cut off my own mouth to stop the voracious hunger of all this life. If there is no mouth, there is no hunger. And the mouth is dangerous with all her wants. The hunger is dangerous with all her desires. If there is no mouth, there is no hunger. If there is no hunger, there is no want. If there is no want, there is no want. If there is no, there is no, there is no. Now, mouths just pour from the empty place my first mouth once lived. And a girl is standing with me under a street lamp in a cool spring evening. She takes one of these mouths that has fallen to the ground and places it upon the hole in my face, whispering, this is your blood poured out for us. Do this in remembrance of me, and leaves me with a kiss. From this place of rituals and deepening my somatic training, over the summer, I co-created personalized rituals for others to honor a move, to honor a life being born, and a family expanding and a body changing, to honor a changing of a name and a chosen identity. This co-creation of private rituals with others has felt sacred and near, and will continue to be carried in my practice. I tell my classrooms, people, anyone who will listen, if you have a feeling, you can access a poem, you can write a poem. A poem is just another entry point into feelings. I swear to God, poems are just feelings on display. Poems also point to all the fatal flaws of the English language. This language cannot do what I want it to. This language fails me time and time and time again, and in the failure, I fall more in love. Is this love? To try and slip into failure and find yourself in the exposure of the try. I've been trying to expansively fail this semester, to untether myself to perfectionism, to let this failure become a somatic expiration of trust in this body. I told my writing class over the summer that writing is a form of listening. And so now, with that in mind, I want to invite you to listen to your own body for a moment. I want you to take a moment now and place your hand on your chest or your stomach or another grounding location for you in your body. If you like, you are also welcome to soften your gaze or close your eyes altogether. And I want to invite you to think of a moment in this last week where you heard a sentence that embodied love for you. Perhaps it's something that somebody said to you, or maybe you overheard it on the street, heard it in a song, read it in a book. I want you to find this sentence and whisper it softly to yourself under your breath. And maybe even do it 2 more times. Now, keeping your gaze soft or closed, see if you can locate this sentence, this image, this phrase in your body. Is it a tickle in the throat? Maybe a humming in the chest? A softening in your jaw? And I want to invite you to bring 1, maybe even 2 hands to that part of your body. Begin to massage this area, allowing the sensation to spread. And repeat the sentence once more under your breath, thanking your body for this sensation, thanking the love for its presence. And with 1 more inhale and exhale, I invite you, when you are ready, to return to the room and open your eyes. In 2022, before arriving at SAIC, I began investigating my relationship to the Bible from my upbringing by shredding my own childhood Bibles and turning them into new paper. I renewed this project for an artist book class over the summer, and I shared this writing with the class. I'm thinking about Gabrielle Seville. I'm thinking about Ross Gay. I'm thinking about Anis Mojgani. I'm thinking about the gestures required of reading, required of listening. I'm thinking about books bigger than my body and the text I've written that feel larger than this body of mine. I'm thinking about rituals and memories and palimpsest and the vast and large and tainted and magic and colonized history of religious text. I'm thinking of my own sordid history with this religious text. And I'm thinking about how this was the first text I was given and where I fell in love with language, and what do I do with that now? I'm thinking about learning to braid my hair in a church with children's books made of yarn. I'm thinking of niceness. I'm thinking about my memories and your memories, and what happens if I reach for my memories enough times, will they dissolve? What if I want the dissolving? What happens in the dissolving? I think I am dissolving. I'm speaking in a language of forget. I speak so long I forget my name. It's working, I think. I keep talking and then my laughter's just set to mute. Okay, just a little longer. I talk and forgetfulness erases me. I go to reach for the closest thing, a light switch, a bottle of wine, a knife, a needle, a music box, another hand, and my hand forgets itself and disappears from my body. Sorry, I cannot hold you. I can't even hold myself. What's that you say? Sorry, you interrupted my disappearing act. Where was I again? Oh yes, noise and lots of it. See how loud I am when need be. A parade of my own distractions. How good at senseless noise I am when need be. Oh yes, I answer all of your questions and forget myself. I answer all of your questions and forget myself. I answer all of your questions and forget myself. My God is a parade of senseless noise. Sisterhood is its own enclosure. Bury me here. Bury me inside my sister. Bury me inside my sister and you will find another sister. I fell in love with Christina Rossetti my freshman year of college, and I did not know how to call my love of women more than sisterhood. Maybe I do not need to. Bury me inside of my sisters, and I will still come out screaming and crawling. My mother and grandmother are pearls of sisters too. With Jesus on my tongue, she leaves rhinestones pearls on my lips when I come up from devouring her memories. There's more than one way to be a sister, but only one can be a reality at any given time. There's more than one way to be a sister, and I wanted to write about my blood, but to write about her is to become her, and I'm not ready for that sort of death. Oh, laundromat, oh, sorority slumber, oh, chapel of cicadas rotting in your throat. My sister dies, I'm buried in her grief. My sister dies, I am laughing at her funeral. My sister dies, her daughter asks if she will be in heaven. My sister dies, my memories die with her. I am dead, my sister is the keeper of my memories. I am dead, my sister laughs at my funeral. She is ready to see me weep. I am dead, my niece is buried with me. Forgive me, memory. I tell you lies. Forgive me, sister. Your memory escapes me. Forgive me, memory, for tomorrow lies. I tell of you tomorrow. Tomorrow memories lie. I will lie about you tomorrow like I will lie about my sister and sister and sister until forgetfulness erases me. Oh, sister, you wretched past of a plum. Eat off the ripe windows and suckle on their fruits. I'll save you, but you must trust the mouth of a sinner. You were just remembering how to be a sister. You were just remembering how to remember. I know you are remembering still. Oh, sister, oh, twinkling disaster of becoming. You are rotting, aren't you? Oh, trepidatious laughter. I peel an orange and your face is below the surface. I peel an orange. I ask you, how wrested forgiveness collapses the tongue. Repeat after me. The queen is dead, my sister is rotting in her grave. Oh, death, delight, oh, sinister dying, I am dead and gone and have been replaced. Oh, sister, I am a sordid believer. I am a tangible gully of grief. J.C. Penney's disaster. I find your obituary in the for sale section. Clearance, off-brand rack of pleasure. You never tasted your own cum. What a shame. How can you understand what it means to die? So what does all of this mean? Where does that leave me, leave us, leave you? I will continue to co-create rituals with people to honor the grief, the changes, the life that expands inside of them, inside of us, inside of me. I will continue to teach poetry, embodiment, and performance. I will continue to co-create spaces of creativity. I will tour again in 2024 and 2025 with a poetry kitchen show. We will eat dinner together. I will continue to write. I will continue to love. I will continue to fail at all of these things. I hope you find ways to love and fail and find yourself among people that leave you unlanguageable. holding gestures that suggest a knowing of a language that we are all clamoring to remember and fail to forget. And I hope that you trust that your work is exactly what somebody needs somewhere, just in the same way that you have a favorite writer, musician, painter, dancer, friend, fast food worker, nurse, etc., 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 that you too are already somebody's favorite. Your work means something in this world. Your presence means something in this world. Whether you choose to share your work with one person or 100 or never, the making of your work is a seed that is planted, even if that seed is only inside of you. Even if that seed is only one word, only one letter, the letter is enough. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Madison. We have 6 or 7 minutes for questions, comments, thoughts, questions you may have for your audience.
I don't got questions. Yeah, Chris.
First of all, so
Thank you, Chris.
and then I guess, I don't know, I think forming a question following that feels like counterintuitive, but I guess so when you're talking about language and it's sort of like inability to sort of capture experience, like always, and then you talk about like memory being fuzzy and those sort of things working in tandem together, I was just wondering if you could say a little more about how that manifests itself in your work.
In the process of the work, like making the work, or the actualization of it, or both? Yeah. So the moment of offering to find a sentence in your body is oftentimes how I make work. I started my movement practice from a place of feeling like the language I was writing, the words I was writing, needed something more than what the page could offer, and I naturally started moving from that space. And so for me, I oftentimes will have a sentence I'm thinking about or meditating on or just keeps repeating for me. Like the word nostalgia, I wrote pretty early on, my first semester through an art history assignment, actually. And that word hasn't really escaped me since then. And from that place, I find it in my body and allow that to be the direction that I then move from. And at the same time, I oftentimes don't know for a while what my poems are about or even in reference to. Like it takes me a while to be in relationship with them. It very much feels like this other thing that's coming to me, and then we are in dialogue together and this coming back and forth. Most of the poems I shared, I wrote since being here, but there was one that I wrote in 2018, 2019. And I don't think it wasn't until I arrived here that I was like, oh, I understand what this is about now. And then I think oftentimes too, if I have a place where for instance, it was an assignment in Matthew Goulish's Systems of Writing class. I had to respond to a text, but I felt like everything I was writing just wasn't hitting. So I went into the 2M performance space downstairs and just brought a bunch of objects and a big piece of butcher paper and from that place of just interacting with objects, I ended up writing my response from the objects, and then the writing came afterwards. So it definitely has evolved into this both and space, but the language informs oftentimes then the later actions that are taking place. Yeah, thank you for that question.
This is kind of a follow-up to that question. It has to do with your nonverbal material choices. And I'm just wondering, maybe you feel like you covered this, but how do you decide, these are so materially intensive, how do you decide them? Or, that's too abstract a question, maybe your top 3 favorite materials right now and why?
I oftentimes, in the same way that I'm like, I don't know what this poem is about, oftentimes I'm like, I don't know why this object is asking to be responded to or interacted with or in relationship to. It's not necessarily a response. I feel like it's very much a collaboration. But I love messiness. I'm trying to allow messiness to be more in my everyday life, but in my regular life, I feel like when I'm not making work or being an artist, I feel like I'm very like, I have to be perfect, da, 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 da. And so there's something about the actual performance and making that gives me a permission to be messy. So I've performed a lot with glitter and making bread and oranges. And so, yeah, very much those spaces. I've performed a lot with fabric and needles and sewing materials. That feels very much generationally, like every memory I have of my grandmother is in relationship to sewing and fabric. And I also love clothes myself. And so it also feels like this other side entry point for me to experience my love of like fashion, even though I don't make clothing myself, but I just really love garments. I don't know if that maybe.
Great, thanks.
Thank you for the question, Ginger. Yeah, Derek.
This was such a beautiful presentation, and I think the reason it was so touching for me was because it like just really evocatively and specifically showed like the intersection of all your interests in a way that I think more formal presentation couldn't have. It's intimate. We're looking at your desktop. We're looking at your files. I'm looking at your notes. Like, yeah, I just really had a experience with this, and I guess my only question is like, how did you come to decide to present your work in this way in this moment? Like, did you know you wanted to do this? Did you cycle through other ways of communicating the work? I just think it was so effective, and I'm curious about how you thought about it.
Thank you. Thank you for that question and just your reflections too. Could y'all hear that question? Do y'all need to repeat? Okay. Yeah, I honestly, most of the writings that I had today, I didn't write anything new for this lecture. I feel like I like went through all my journals. So this stack right here are all the journals I've gone through since I've arrived at SAIC. So I write a lot, and it's like both like just process and life and yeah. And so I just went through and I just like gathered my own processing around writing. And then from that space, I was like, how do I begin to sift through all of this text that I have? And I ended up, for Chris Reeves' art history class that I'm currently in, gave a similar desktop performance presentation in response to one of his assignments, and was very excited by that presentation. And then I was talking to Camille, who was going after me, about how much I loved it. And then Camille was like, oh, of course you do. You layer poetry, you layer language, you layer objects. And then she was like, you layer clothing, look at your wardrobe. And I was like, oh, wow, this feels so right. And so having that reflection really affirmed where I was already leaning towards and my excitement from that initial prompting from Chris. So also thank you, Chris, for that assignment. And also feeling very still murky about what I've been making since I've been here. I feel more clear now, but as I approached this task, I was like, what have I been doing? And wanting to show that too and not feel like it's this like pretty polished bow, and that felt inauthentic for my own process right now. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Thank you so much, Maddie. Congratulations. Really.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next will be Camille Cashmere, and with yet another mega brief takeover.